So if you have a group that would be interested to hear more about this project, we're always happy to come and do that presentation. I'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Andrea Serrata. I'm one of the assistant managers at Hickory, and I'm happy to be working on this project. We've been evolving toward this process for about a year now, and I'll take you all the way through that, beginning to now, and catch you up on the work that City Council has done and the ideas that they have, and sort of how we need your feedback then too for this project. But so for housekeeping, we've got the restroom, the women's is there, the men's is there, and so if you're not comfortable, if the tent needs to go up, just say the word. But I think we'll just go ahead and get started with that. So we'll be here about right at an hour, maybe a little less. And we had a lot of questions last night, so we went a little bit longer.
You might need to point at the front of the projector.
Projector or laptop?
Oh, this is the laptop.
You want me to advance it for you?
Well, we have, let's see.
I can sit up there and scroll through it.
Battery maybe.
This one? Not this?
Yeah. Let me just do it. I can do it from right.
I think just touching the right, less touching the work.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, that may be why the other's not working. Maybe they can't both talk to each other at the same time. All right, so City Council has been spending the last year thinking about their priorities for the coming year, and they decided to embark on a series of trips to other cities that had experienced economic decline. And they did that because there's probably no better way to sort of see change happen and find out the good and the bad, the difficult and the challenging stories from those people themselves. And so they met with officials in Chattanooga and Burlington, Roanoke, Greenville, South Carolina, and Asheville. And so what they learned was that, and we selected those cities for a reason. One, because they had a manufacturing base, and two, they had brought themselves back out of a time when you really didn't want to visit that city. And so with that, then several themes emerged. One was that each of those cities decided that the private sector was not the only party to make improvements to the city, that really took a public sector partnership with the private sector in order to enhance or redevelop some areas. So they learned that. We learned we just can't let it have to happen, or it won't happen quickly or strategically without that public investment. Also, their projects all seem to focus on redevelopment and economic development. So basically, the focus wasn't just let's landscape certain streets just because those are streets we all drive on. They had strategic plans for certain areas of town. So if you've been to Asheville, you have Pack Square Plaza, and that's a special place all of its own, and had its own nonprofit that worked hard to bring that space into a great public event center. But then, if you go to Chattanooga, there's the Riverwalk, and the Riverwalk included a number of brownfield, terrible abandoned business sites, manufacturing sites, and those were Superfund sites, which is just a term that's identified through EPA, through the federal government, that those were very dirty sites, and someone had to pay to clean them up. So Chattanooga then decided they were going to go from the worst polluted city to the most clean city, and it worked. It took them 30 years. And then Greenville's story is very similar. And if you went to Greenville in the late 80s, it wasn't really exciting. It didn't have a lot of downtown energy. It just had some buildings and some sidewalk space, but no vibrancy. And And so they all needed to partner with the private sector and with philanthropists to make these projects happen. I'm sorry. Get used to clicking on this one. All right. So when we visited Greenville, the developer that did much of the work in Greenville, Phil Hughes, then talked to the city council, and he described, sort of from a private sector side, what he felt needed to happen. And that included the city taking a role in development and redevelopment that was not just related to streets, water, and sewer, and safety and cleanliness. Really, it was related to going beyond those fundamentals and making sure that we responded to what the citizens wanted. And hopefully there were young people that wanted certain activities. And so he said, we needed to have programming. Well, so each city's going to figure out what that means for them, but Greenville certainly has figured out programming quite successfully. And so that's what Phil Hughes said. Alrighty. So the plan itself, then, as we traveled across, then the plan itself evolved into a title called Inspiring Spaces, because what council felt was that what council felt was that these places that need to be created or improved upon really need to be gathering places for our community, so that no matter which neighborhood you live in, you feel like that's a place that you can come to and enjoy your time, whether that's reading a book, sitting in a nice table and chair, whether that's walking on a greenway, or whether that's spending time in a park, or riding your bike along a bikeway, either on the street or a trail. All of those need to be available to people of all ages and people from every neighborhood. And that each of those places that gets selected for this project is something where we're taking great painstaking detail to make sure it reflects Hickory, and that it's a sort of a signature of our community. And so the project then is evolving into one that requires us to hire a consultant, and we have selected Land Design out of Charlotte. They're an international firm that does planning and landscape design and engineering work. And so with that project then came a committee. I'll get to that. And so with the plan itself also had some specific targeted projects related to it. So if you might wonder, well, what's on that list? And the list really includes some of these things. So there will be some potential intersections that are redesigned that have greater sort of vibrancy to them, related to landscaping, signage, related to maybe some street lighting, maybe some traffic calming around. And then there may be some public art that's part of a different project in another part of town. So it really just depends on what the projects come out. But that's just a basic first list. And that list is what we're going to build from. And so the process is 4 parts, and we're in phase 2, and that's in your brochure. So as you talk to your neighbors and friends about it, you can just go ahead and refer down to the bottom we're in the community input process, and we've had 2 other meetings, one at Hickory Police Department, one at Ridgeview Rec Center, and the third last night at Highland Rec Center, and this one tonight. So we're trying to reach out to the neighborhoods and find people that are interested to learn about the project, and then continue to give us feedback. That's part of the reason why we've asked for your email, so that we can then put you on a list that receives updates from us periodically through this process. And so we're in phase 2. We've had not only these meetings, but a series of stakeholder meetings where we met with different groups across the community church leaders we met with, the bicycle club groups we met with, the hospitals and healthcare industry, we met with downtown groups, other business groups. There were about 16 meetings of different groups that we met, for a total of about 80 people that participated there as well. So a lot of input going into that. This is the steering committee. And so you may recognize some of those names, and those folks have been selected so that they can help lead the charge to say this process is one worth considering. Because in the end, it needs some public support, because none of this is going to happen successfully if we don't have a plan that then people can say, I understand why they want to make those improvements, and I support that. So that's why we have this group selected. And we need visionary people, and so not only do we get that from these meetings, but we get that visionary input from this stakeholder group. You might notice a lot of business names on that list too. Part of that is to engage the local business community to say, where can your business then help partner with the public sector to improve a particular stretch of roadway with improved landscaping, or where can they maybe put some nice public art. Those are the types of things we're thinking about. So this group not only was assembled this summer, but went immediately to a series of one-day tours to Rock Hill and to Greenville. And the land design went with us. Meg Nealon, Beth Pooty, and Dan Mercer went, and they helped us and talked with the representatives in Rock Hill. And let's just start with Rock Hill. So Rock Hill has some similarities that are related to Hickory. If you think about the relationship of Winthrop to the downtown, and if you've traveled in Rock Hill lately, they have a great emphasis on their park space and on bridging that gap between the college community and the rest of the community, and specifically downtown. And so one of those areas that we want to focus on is engaging LR and bringing the students into other areas that are part of our community, whether that's the Salt Block or downtown or any number of areas. And so we also went to Greenville and showed those folks on the committee to the parts of Greenville that are very much related to public space. Greenville has a sort of a nationally recognized greenway bike trail, the Swamp Rabbit Trail, if you're familiar with that. It's about 40 miles long, and the stretch that connects Travelers Rest to downtown Greenville is not only just a recreation venue, but it's actually a way for people to travel from Furman. Kids can ride their bike or walk from Furman that has access to the trail 7 or 8 miles down into downtown Greenville, and then go right back. And there's it's patrolled. It has paved surface. It's very nice. So they really set the bar high, and we want to be right there trying to do the same thing at some point. So I've already covered that. Alrighty, well that last slide was just a picture of the inside. So it just summarizes to you the type of plan that this is. So not only is it a plan that generates ideas, but it's a plan that then provides a list of projects, a specific list of projects, a timeline for completing them, an estimate of how much they will cost, and then where they would go, and really almost down to a sort of a pre-bid construction level. So when you're planning improvements to your house, you go out and get estimates from contractors, and you say, how much is it going to cost to remodel my kitchen? Well, and you have maybe a range of ideas that you want to do. Well, that's really what this type of list gives us as well, is a range of costs for the projects that then would be part of the project. And we don't always do that with all the plans that we have, because that's not necessarily part of the planning process. But in this case, it is. And so we're moving forward. So this next slide is when we're asking for some feedback. the goals, and we'll go over those together. And they're at the top of the page. And there are 6 goals, and the only one that dropped off is to encourage active living, and that's because of the sheet that dropped off. But anyhow, we'll go through that in detail. So look at those goals, and this is what the group has felt so far that this plan should cover. And so specifically, we want to add to these goals. If you feel like there's something missing, if you have a particular interest in a type of outdoor recreation or public improvement, then let's just list those. So what you'll do is you will put your goals there, right where it says additional goals, and then you actually put your name in, and if you wanted to, your email, otherwise you have it on the sheet. So specifically for the goals, we'll start with the first one, to spur economic development. So the purpose of this plan, the main purpose, not the only one, but one of the main ones, is to say we have got to create a more energized community, a more dressed up community. It's just time to spruce up. It's time to take our roadways, our corridors, our walkways, our outdoor recreation in terms of what we can do in the public space, not just at parks, but along our city streets, to the next level. Other communities are doing it, and really it's time. Now, there are lots of plans in place with sidewalk master plans, greenway master plans, and a number of other bikeway plans. Those are all being considered. So the work done is not for loss. It is going to be factored into this plan itself, and then it'll just be filtered as far as what can we do first, what makes the most sense to spend the money on. But it's all related to jobs. Why? And you may wonder, well, how does that make sense? You know, this is about landscaping and signage and sprucing up. Well, part of what we have to do is improve our quality of life every chance we get in our community. And we enjoy living in Hickory, and other people like Hickory when they visit, but we are also competing with cities that are saying it's time to build these types of facilities, or we need to have this level of streetscape improvement, or we need gateways that come into our town to define our area better. And we need to do that too. We just really can't sit back and just expect people to think this is always going to be a great place if we're not making some improvements along the way. So that's really the first one, because with the companies that are able to shop around, and people shop us, think about just, you have a company, you have 500 employees, and you're coming from California. Well, you're going to look for a number of things, and one of those is quality of life in the community. And there's education that people look at, that companies look at. There's just sort of the housing market, the amenities that are available in the community. We have so many already with the cultural arts that we have, and the emphasis on being outdoors, but yet it's time to make sure that we don't let any of that slow down. We have to keep improving. And I mentioned this earlier, so we haven't been ignoring any of this. We've been planning it all along, so there are a number of plans we're pulling from. You may have been part of Hickory by Choice, which is our comprehensive plan. You may have been involved 10 years ago in Hickory by Choice, or in City Center Plan. You may have been involved in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, or some of the Greenway plans. Those are all being considered by land design as we pull in the things that are already good recommendations. We do this so that we are always improving our image, and we make these improvements for those obvious reasons. We just have to make sure we're making good choices for our investment. And so not only do we do this to bring in people, but we do this to create some civic pride. And cities just need to sort of lift themselves up. It's a tough time economically. Everybody's had to cut back, and everybody's had experienced some loss, or friends that have had loss of jobs, and we need to figure out ways to maybe simplify our lives and get outside more, and reinvest in the places that are already nice in Hickory and dress them up. So it's not really about starting new and a green field somewhere. It's about taking care of our existing areas that are public. And we hope we can do that in order to create a better sense of place. Because you may have traveled recently, and you probably have in your mind a special place that you love to go, maybe with your family or friends that you always talk about, or you always think, you know, that place has something going on, or I really love going and seeing such and such a place. Well, so wherever that is in your mind, just think about that there are people that have that feeling about Hickory and some of the places that we already have in Hickory, and we are just hoping to add to and create more experiences where people identify that special time that they have with Hickory. And the last piece is that we just need options to get out of the car and to get away from our desk jobs or just to get out of the house, whatever it is, and just give our children a chance to roam and do a little more activity, and you know, just make it more a part of the normal daily life, as opposed to I have to go and exercise so I can go sit back down. We need to make it more of a choice to move around differently. So we want to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Those are the 6. If you know of something that's missing from that list of goals, Land Design really wants to know what that is. And we're collecting all these sheets at the end and sharing those all with Land Design. We've done that for each meeting. And so anything that just comes to mind as a goal that we've not covered, it's perfectly great to add that.
Those are rather general.
They are. That's the goals.
You're looking for general.
Looking for general. Specific is on the back. Okay.
5 to 6 of those.
Good. Good. So yes, this is general, and so you may say that's a good list. I mean, we're not sure. We just want to be sure we haven't missed anything that was obvious, and maybe a part of the neighborhood or a community that we aren't hearing from, and that's why we've had the meetings in the different areas. So take a moment there. You can always go back to it. We've got a little time. What we've done are this is the last of the 4 meetings, and so just to say where they've been, that's where we've traveled. And we're headed into a series of meetings that will happen over the next several months. And so the total timetable for this project has a final document available to us in early May, late April. That's really the timetable. But what happens over the next several months is that Land Design is pooling this information and starting to think about some concepts for how to implement, how to suggest projects that relate back to those goals. And they will share some of those concepts and some of the feedback that they heard, not only through the stakeholder meetings, but through these meetings, with the advisory committee and city council week after Thanksgiving. Then they'll be in Hickory again, and they will be spending some time working on sort of a charrette process, which is a sort of a fast design, sort of they travel out, look at some areas where they think projects might be able to occur, and then come back and they do some sketches, and this sort of a process that evolves through a series of design steps. And then where you all will be available to come back into the process and to catch up is then at an open house. Instead of it being in early January, it's going to be in late January, just now because of the timing of everything. So scratch the early and look for it in the late. We have your emails, so you'll get several notices from us once we set that date. And then you will have an open house meeting where they'll have stations, and you can sort of see the concept ideas and talk to the consultants and give them your feedback about it. That's really the next key time for citizens to be involved. So this plan has 4 major parts for the plan. It has a set of recommendations that come out of that plan, just written, just like you would see in a regular document. But then it has a series of detailed plan view plans. So it tells you what area. It has a sort of a diagram of what the building footprints are, and how think about changing and you need to flesh out what those potential costs are. They're going to do that for 4 of the top projects. So the most complicated ones that are the ones that end up being high on the list to get started on, they will flesh out the costs. Whether that's a streetscape, landscaping median improvement up and down 127, or whether that's some fountains and splash pads in different parts of the city. We're not sure. It can be a number of things. They'll flesh out those costs. And then the renderings will just give us a 3D sort of sketch model version. So you'll be able to see all of that. And that's just another example of the detail of the probable cost. Alright. So, just taking a moment to finish up those goals. If you had more to write, you can do that. And so what Land Design did is after they went to the different cities, Rock Hill and Greenville, with the group, then they came and toured Hickory. So they're looking at Hickory with the lens of this is, here's the city that has asked us to help them make improvements. Where are those obvious areas that need improvement? Where are gaps between destinations that don't have good linkages? Now what that means is that is it easy to walk and safe and convenient to walk, as an example, from the Salt Block to downtown to Ridgeview Rec Center and over to LR and back up, or out to Highland Rec? It's just really not. We have some challenges there. Those are just examples. We could map that in any number of scenarios. But what Land Design did was take a tour and look at the neighborhoods and look at the main corridors of Hickory. And they came up with a study map, and this is on your sheet. It's maybe not totally easy to read, but basically just the study area. And the study area says we've got a number of major corridors to think about that could have some improvement. So, those improvements could happen out Springs Road and Highland Avenue, and even up 127 and south onto Center Street, and out Lenore Road toward 321. So all the major travelways that you know of in your city, those are the study areas. They're also looking at the major destinations for public destinations, and that's what some of those bullets are on that list. And so that's just a way that they get started on this process. And what they did from there is say, for Hickory, for this project, there are 5 key things to focus on: destinations, open space, gateways, corridors, and overall character. And so those 5 things will frame our project, and we'll have our project ideas will then respond to one or more of those 5 characteristics. And so that's a lot of information to give you, but just so you are all the way familiar with how this process works, that's what they think about. And so in this map, they start showing not only the original travel paths, which those are sort of the light red, but then they added additional ones that came up as we went on our tour with the advisory committee and the consultants. So we said, 321 and up around the park areas for where we are tonight, over to Hilton, the connection between Highland Rec Center and LR, out Tate Boulevard, east and west, and 70. Let's see. Yeah, those are some of the additions that were made, and they added to that base map. And then they went on when they met with the stakeholders, then they heard more information that we need to consider Springs Road a little bit. We needed to think about McDonald Parkway up north and south. We needed to think about connecting down to 70 and 40. We needed to think about Tate Boulevard and Fairgrove Church Road out by because we have a huge footprint as a city limits, 29 square miles, and we really have a lot of territory to cover. So this project won't just magically fix everything in the city, but I think we have to realize that there are different places places that people enter the city and that travel every day, and so we want to, over time, make sure we've not left any area out. All right, so flipping to the back side of your sheet. There are two questions that land design is interested to hear from you. One is just your gateways. And we'll go over this in detail. So gateways are those sort of entry points either to the city from an interstate or from a major highway, or into your neighborhood or into your sort of section of Hickory, maybe in a commercial area. But if, you know, they're going to come sort of intuitively to your mind. You think about gateways into Viewmont, gateways into Oakwood Hillcrest, gateways over into Forest Hills. Those are more of the minor sort of neighborhood gateways, but then the major ones are on the interstates and on the highways. The second question then relates to not only those gateways, but then the actual corridors themselves. Which ones need to be spruced up? So if you travel Old Lenore Road every day, what do you see on Old Lenore Road, and how could that be dressed up or spruced up? You know, that's, and what has already happened? You know, there are a lot of interesting shops that have sprung up, plus have maintained, have stayed firm and strong, and you know, so they're making it. And then what does the public roadway say in terms of its character? You know, is it really bland? There's not much landscaping, really not any sidewalks, things like that. So that's just a way to talk about that one particular corridor, but you may travel others and you can list those too. The third question then responds to destinations and open space. You'll have time while I go through this presentation to keep working on this, but destinations and open space relates to, in particular, outdoor destinations. So if you had a beautiful day in Hickory, where would you go? How would you spend your time? And why did you select that place? So we want to find out what really drives people outdoors and what brings them there over and over again. And that helps land design then understand the character of destination choices that people are making in Hickory and how to replicate that maybe in other parts of the community. All right, so maybe not every destination is perfect, so what would you improve about the place that you go? So that's the fourth question there. And then what outdoor features have you seen elsewhere in other travels, in other cities? Just curious. We know some in our heads, but if you've been places that you think are just outstanding, that you enjoy, obviously, you know, if this is Paris on your list, then you do that. So, yeah, within reason, maybe I should say it's 40,000 population, I don't know. No, you know, actually you could take from those European examples, Canadian examples, any of those. There are places all over the world that are really interesting that can be easily replicated. The little twist of Hickory character, and that's what we want to find out. What would motivate you to get outside and go to Hickory? So while you're working on that, we just, you know, those 5 key themes are really where we're trying to spend our time. So some people say, well, we'd like to have more interesting shops, or we'd like to have more indoor recreation. You know, and so this plan probably won't speak to that. You know, we have to sort of limit it to the public realm, which is parks and streets and right-of-ways that are outside spaces. So in thinking about destinations, one of the things we're learning from land design is that it's important to connect those destinations. So, you know, going to one place by driving in your car is fine, But if you could drive in your car, or even walk or bike to a destination, and then go from that point to another point by foot or by bike or some other transportation. If you had a way to do 2 or 3 things and get back and forth from those places safely and easily, enjoyably, that's really what strengthens those destinations and encourages more and more people to use them. And so that's part of what land design will help us do. And that destination doesn't have to be outside. What we're looking for is our improvements would all happen outside, but a destination might be a public building or and in this case, just the Ridgeview Library is an example. And if you could get from downtown to Ridgeview Library safely, what would that look like and how would you do that? LR is a perfect example. What a resource, not only for just all of us living in Hickory, just to be able to know that they're there and that's a beautiful area of town, but how can we utilize the streets and the street network and get there safely and enjoyably, and then go from there to the salt block or to another destination. And then how do those students then, how safe do they feel and how encouraged do they feel like they can not drive but actually get downtown or get to the salt block for a concert or things like that. We just want to make sure all of that feels really strong and safe and fun and inviting so that there's activity. Because then where you have activity, you have energy, and the energy then is what people see as the business owners come and look and think about Hickory as a great place to live. And then if you're already here, you just think, I like this place, and you spend time in those areas. Salt Block is a third example of this. So the corridors are how we get there. And so there's going to be some consideration for improving the corridors in Hickory. And those corridors are not only streets, but also sidewalks or bikeways, connections that get people from A to B. Sometimes corridors just need better signage. And that's another key part of this project. And we already have wayfinding as a project ready to go. It might fit in nicely with the inspiring spaces, but wayfinding is the decorative signage that you see in other cities, and we have a little bit in downtown that points you to major destination points. And it's coordinated by color schemes and sort of brings out the theme, and you see that in a lot of places, and we're ready to go in our community with that as well. So this is the list of corridors. Now, if we've left one off that you think need to be spruced up, please write it in the top right box there. This is the list of major ones that sort of are obvious and I've mentioned already, but you may have a different perspective as you drive through Hickory, so we want to hear about that.
The 4th Street corridor is not listed there.
That's a good point. You might want to put that one down. Because they'll look at the plan in terms of, primary corridors into town from the major roadways, but then that's a primary corridor between 70 and downtown, so absolutely, that's a great example. This is another example, it's right here, it's a great way. So, it'd be nice to be able to go eventually from a place like this down past the lake and across under or over 321, getting it a little further out on a bikeway or greenway. And so, just as a way to show you the planning process, this is just a map where the land design has done initial work. So in no way is this like a recommendation yet or a final product. This is really just a marker line on the map. But it just shows you that there is a direct connection there from the LRX to the downtown. Now, what you see when you go in that direction is this. And so that's a little rough around the edges. And, but it has potential, and so the landscape architects can see through some of the crowdedness and the sort of, I don't know, just lack of care in that space. So they're going to have some recommendations about corridors like this one as well. They say, you know, maybe bike lanes on either side potentially. Now that might not appeal to everyone. You might not be comfortable with that, but they're also thinking about a linear park abutting the rail. So they're starting to brainstorm, you know, how do you use that corridor in a better way than it's being used today. There's a lot of diagonal parking, everything from our fire department to the pawn shop, soup kitchen, the judicial building, and then City Hall. There's a whole row of diagonal parking that might be not configured the best they could be, and maybe there's a way to fit in a linear park. So gateways, there's another example of a gateway. So we talked about major intersections on the interstates, but even Kenworth does one of the best jobs of announcing that you've arrived in their neighborhood. And you know, historically, we just forget that just some, you know, there's no sign except on the, you know, the cap with the street sign, but there's no placard on that stone wall. You just know on that pillar, you just know you've gotten somewhere special. And it really brings character. So simple things like that we could do in more places around town just to say you've arrived, then really help us navigate how we see the city. And it helps us put it into compartments and know when you've entered one place and then you know when you've left that place and entered another one. And you do that so that you can I think psychologically manage the traveling space that we're going through and care more about it and be able to talk about it. And so a lot of this is a little esoteric, but at the same time, you know when you've traveled in a city that has a good grid system and has ways to enter and exit areas, and you feel like you understand the flow of the city much better and you feel more at home. But just going back to the gateways that need to happen more significantly on the interstates, you know, we have an opportunity there to announce to the traveling public on I-40 and 321 that we are here, we have lots of restaurants, and we have places to stay overnight, and they do that a lot on the interstate already, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to pull that traveling public a little further into town and show that when you travel, you know, if you have a choice, you might want to be a little more into the depth of the town as opposed to just on the interstate. So at least the gateways at the intersections then, whether that's through additional landscaping, although there is a lot of landscaping there, there's a lot of mature trees, but and we're lucky that DOT has done the lighting that it's done in the last 3 years. So the lower lighting, and you remember how dark it used to be on I-40 through Hickory, and that has improved. So we have little incremental things, but if we had better signage that said "Welcome to Hickory" or some sort of landscaped entry points on several of the exit ramps, then that would be something that would help people know that we're here, we're invited, we're a space that is interested to have others attend. And just as an example, you know, the 321 is going to change over the next 10 years, and it's going to, the plans are to make it into a super street design to handle more traffic, and so it'll have a number of additional lanes, but it won't have the crossings, the at-grade crossings with the stoplights. It will have the traveling, you'll get into the far left lane and make a U-turn to go back and catch the businesses on the opposite side. So you may have traveled in other parts of North Carolina and other states that have that. It's called a super street. And so with that design, then comes a chance to dress up all 321. So we're excited to be able to work with DOT over the next years and put that plan into place. And so that'll help intersections like this maybe not look so stark. And so I'm reminded of a intersection intersection just south of this one that has done much better in terms of public art even. And so if you think about the Bonita site, right there as you exit, is that second? No, thank you. And there's a wagon wheel and some public art that's been put there that neighborhood said, you are arriving somewhere that cares about the heritage of this area. And so just that little detail makes that intersection much nicer maybe than this one that's just sort of all about private commerce and getting in and out. And here's another example of potential. And so I always say, if you're in this area, you're just trying to make sure you get in the left lane, far left, am I in the right left, the correct left lane? And so you can make that left turn and get into the campus. So even signage and even just, the potential there, that El Sombrero building and that whole intersection, as it will respond to the change that's going on at Holler Hosiery, which is just further west of that light. All of that can have great significant impact on how that intersection looks and how it functions. And then if we could just be a part of that with signage and landscaping and maybe some lighting, then that would make that area much better. These are just a few more of the corridors that extend to the one-way pairs. They have their nice features about them, and then they have, we're struggling with we all need power, so our power is all pretty much all above ground. And so, someone asked last night, is that even worth bringing up, the underground electric question? And the answer is, I think you can put that down. The cost is what creates the issue. And so there may be some great intersections that deserve that extra treatment, and it would be a great part of a project that's proposed here. So we want to think about it. I don't give up on it, but as far as it just being easy to put all the power underground, we're just not in a community that is able to do that. And that's what we're not in control of that either. That's Duke Power. So with the committee itself, the members have been sort of talking and thinking about what their input is going to be to the plan. And so they've been thinking about things that in particular, one committee member said this statement, that landscaping just really does, it sounds like it's, why wouldn't we just do that now? Well, you have to have a good design. And then there's the issue of maintaining it. And so we have to be prepared for that. The cost to install and the cost to maintain. But it's worth doing. It's that important. That's what is starting to make cities distinguish themselves. Even just as this house decided to do some extra landscaping. And, no, you're fine. Yes, I will. Thank you. So this house, here in Northwest Hickory on 12th Street, they just decided they'd take advantage of the extra large side yard that they had that's probably right away. And they said, we're just going to make sure that that's not only screened for us to be able to sit on our porch, but it also is something beautiful to look at. So we have to think about how to do that in our commercial areas too. Not to always just have parking everywhere, but make sure our areas are buffered, and that softens up the view. We had another committee member that really understands that our assets are worth promoting. And I went to a meeting over the weekend with some college friends of mine, and one of my friends reminded me that she lived in Hickory, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't remember that until she reminded me. It's been a number of years, but that her husband lived in Hickory in the late 90s, from about 95 to about 2000, and their children were born here, and he worked for Alex Lee, and they went to lunch in the downtown. They went to take their children in the downtown for lunch, and their children were born at Fry, and she said, is that salt block still there? And she said, they live in Ohio now. And I said, oh yes, we have the library. I said, was the library there when you were there? She said, oh yes. She thought she remembered it. And so basically, all of those images in her mind, the neighborhoods that they lived in and the places they walked, where she walked with her kids with a stroller, and the chances she had to go and eat, all stayed with her many years after she's been gone. And they're the places that we love too. And so we have those assets. And I say that to say we have those assets, and people coming to Hickory will see them again. We just need to make sure we keep them fresh. So just simple things like visual improvements for this, we'll need to, so we'll need to just dress up. That's really the thing here. And visually, just softening up the landscaping is something that is always helping, whether that is in the downtown area or out in the commercial areas. And so the travel that we experience in our cars is fine, but we just really should take advantage of the bike lanes and the chance to walk. And this is a great section through town where you can do both, or all three, safely. And so not all of these projects then can just be something that the city funds. Some of them need a partnership, and some of them need to happen in conjunction with large private development. And part of our process is going to be to look at areas of town that are close or have the potential to come back, and maybe make investments in those key areas as well. You know where that is on 127 at the one-way pairs, and so this has great potential, and this is one of the destination places that we know someday will come back. And we hope that whoever we get to work with who will renovate that mill building will then let us help with, you know, some landscaping or some signage or lighting and things like that, because that's really what's going to enhance that area. Oftentimes they make those off-street and off-site improvements anyway, but in the case of this building, you know, it really goes all the way down to the railroad trestle, and that's a large parcel, and so there's a lot of opportunity to work together on a great space. And so we've talked a lot about character, so I won't spend much time on that, but you know sort of what visual clues about Hickory then trigger this to be a distinctive place as opposed to Greensboro or a Wilmington. We have specific things that make us different. When I see this picture, I always think about, you know, we really extend all the way down to CBCC, and that's really another population that needs to be served. And so what could this plan do for that area of 70? You know, and that's such a speedway and such a busy commercial area strip. And so is there anything that this plan can speak to that would improve that experience that those students have, even at CBCC? All right, so with that, I'm going to just go into some final comments. So if you haven't finished your rule sheet, then this is the time to do that. But we do all of this because we need to increase the property tax value of all our parcels in the city. And so we make those improvements strategically. And an example of that is the extension of LR Boulevard and taking the train trestle from on grade to up into the bridge at LR, just south of the college. And that investment and the extra treatment that was done on the roadways, on that roadway, the landscaping, the lighting, the high lighting and the low lighting, all of that, and the sidewalk, all of that opened that area up. It's almost like you took the cover off and you said, oh, well, we've found something that was lost. And so then what else did we find as we unveiled that area? And we found this great mill building. Well, now somebody else has said that's important, that needs to be renovated. And they've figured out a way to do that. Well, there are other buildings in that area. There's a lot of great bungalow homes in that area, some really interesting little cottage businesses in that area, and it just has potential. Now, you see hickory chair, and maybe that smokestack is not appealing to you, but you know that's still part of our character, and that probably shouldn't go away. That's not what we're saying at all. It just gives that place character, but there are lots of ancillary buildings in that area that then could be improved. And what happens is the property values in that area then all raise, and that's what we need to do. We have to grow the tax base so that we can continue to have a strong city. We also have to compete. So going back to that quality of life, we are competing with that crescent, those crescent cities, all the way from Charlotte, even stretching down into South Carolina, all the way around 85 and 40. All of those cities have the benefit of a shared economic market, basically a shared area of commerce where businesses locate and they feel like, well, if I'm in Mooresville or if I'm in Mount Holly, I have access to, I'm near so many things, and near becomes a relative term because then you're on I-77 trying to fight that traffic, or you're, waiting just to try to get across, a bridge somewhere that's been shut down. So it's relative. What we have in Hickory then, and what we have to compete against then is a more compact space that has a lot of, you can get all over town in just a few minutes, and that's appealing, and it's going to be appealing because there's going to always be that group that wants to live in that busy corridor, but there's going to be people that want to live in Hickory. We just have to tell our message and show them that we've maintained and we're just as vibrant as those other cities are, even though we're not completely connected. And then as a result, the businesses hopefully will see that we're still very close to Charlotte. It's really about a 50-minute drive down 16 or down 321 to get to Charlotte and to the busy commerce area. But we hope people then see the independence that Hickory has as a hub city in a Blue Ridge foothill setting as much more appealing than just any old other place. So we need to always spur private investment in these buildings. So part of this project is hopefully to bring back some energy into areas that need that. And the reinvestment doesn't have to always be in those mill buildings, although we want them to be. It can also be in these buildings that are our big boxes. And a lot of times we feel like, the big boxes just seem to come in, invade, and leave, and then we're stuck with that space. And it's nice to see a business